Hi, this is Jamie and welcome to another Now Productivity Big Idea. Not so much a big idea today, but a big question. Should we be keeping up with the news? The news is everywhere, coming at us from all angles. Newspapers, TV, the internet, Facebook, etc. Very difficult to get away from it, and we seem to get quite wrapped up in it. If any of you saw a documentary around Christmas time on the BBC about the band Bros, you remember it got quite big reviews because it was quite quirky in that some of the things that certainly Matt Goss, the lead singer, was coming out with when he was talking in his LA home. He mentioned one thing about when he wakes up that he likes to turn on the news. It kind of keeps him less stressed and engaged with what's going on. And I thought, wow, that's interesting that it's keeping his stress levels down. For me, if I'm watching the news, the stress levels are only going one way, and that's up. So maybe we could get a little bit of information here from a band called Aerosmith. If you've not heard of Aerosmith, you might want to check out Big Ones, their greatest hits. They're some classic ones like Love in an Elevator, Dude Looks Like a Lady, Crazy, Eat the Rich, Living on the Edge. Only yet one of those particular tracks, Crazy, is, are we being crazy by just constantly being in the news all of the time? Maybe because it's to do with another track that wasn't on this greatest hits, which was a song from the film, ironically, Armageddon, which was I Don't Want to Miss a Thing. And that's how we are with the news. We feel that we need to be keeping up and not missing a thing. But of course, a lot of that news is about kind of Armageddon, tragic news, upsetting, creating fear. And is it that particularly good for us? So a few years ago, you might recall that a bomb went off in Boston during, or kind of around the finishing line of the Boston Marathon. And an experiment was done around that time of where they measured the stress levels of people who were actually there at the event and measured the stress levels of people who watched a recording of the breaking news of this event unfolding. And from that, it was quite remarkable in that they found that the stress levels of the people who weren't even there, who were watching the recording, were higher than the people who were actually there at the time, which was quite fascinating. So it got me thinking about this idea of kind of breaking news. We see kind of, when we turn on the TV and we see that kind of ticker going along the bottom, breaking news, and it really engages us and keeps us there. And of course, when the adverts come on, we want to go back and see what's coming up next that we don't want to miss out. Of course, we find that on our phones as well. We're keeping up with, say, BBC News or Sky News or whatever world news, having those notifications popping up at random times throughout the day. And, you know, a lot of this stuff, is it kind of stuff that we have any control over, or it's going to have any effect on our lives? We get this thing called FOMSI. No, not Fonzie, as in Happy Days, if you remember the TV show. FOMSI, the fear of missing something important. And that's what we have with the news, that there might be this one thing that appears that's really, really important to us. But, of course, back in the day, before we had all the technology, we just had our TV and kind of the 6 o'clock news, and we'd batch up all the news into one part of the day, say for half an hour, rather than it being fragmented right throughout the day and distracting us from the other things and other productive things that we're hopefully doing. And of course, we also have to remember, and I recall the comedian Russell Brand saying, why do they call it the news? Because it's not all the news that's going on. There's lots and lots of other news, local news, stuff around the world that's just not going on, big and maybe tragic or big brilliant news that's coming out that we don't hear about. We just hear about what the media want to tell us. And so they're just reducing the menu down into some of, the big things, but there are lots of other things as well that we shouldn't just assume that it is the news. As Russell Brand said, it's just news. It's just news, it's information for us that may affect us and may not. And with that FOMSI, there's kind of this 1% chance of this, it might affect us. So do we need to be hearing about all the other 99% of things during our day, which we may near care or bother about or have no control over as well. So, you know, of course it can affect our stress levels. So an experiment for you is, can you go without the news for maybe a week? Maybe turn off the news, turn off those notifications on your phone. You know, not that endless searching through the Daily Mail archives and the next sensational thing to look at. What about maybe testing out, giving yourself some space and seeing how and if that affects you during the week? There's some critical things that you've missed, or actually there was nothing you missed and you create some space for some other things in your life, and also maybe looking at those stress levels as we looked, you know, with that experiment in Boston, you know, having a close eye on your general stress levels as well, and see if by being out of the news, if that affects you. So there's your big idea, and a bit of homework for the week is test that out and see if you can go without the news for a week. If it's something big, for me, I go without the news a lot. If it's something big, usually my wife tells me, or you know, it does appear someone tells you, so you don't have to go always sifting for it. We've got these kind of information kind of people who will feed that to us at random times if it's something really big that we might need to know about. Test that out, let me know how it works for you, let me know in the comments there, and I look forward to seeing you next time for another big idea.